Welcome, folks, to another Monster Monday, the best way to start your week. And following a week of frigid frost and flurries, you'd think that maybe I'd have a monster to warm you up. But if I'm out there suffering in the cold, you can at least ensure that your players are doing the same with this week's beastie, the Legiana. It feels like it's been a bit since I've tapped into the Monster Hunter franchise. I haven't made a monster for it since last year, and the Legiana specifically is one I originally passed over. I thought that between the Frost Drake and White Dragon, we had enough cold dragons. But then I realized that we already have a ton of fire dragons, so my point was kind of ridiculous. After that, the main struggle was figuring out how to make it distinct, and that also proved easier than I originally thought, as I leaned into its aerial acrobatics. After looking at some of the other Mon Hunt creatures I put together, I settled on level 8 for this frigid flyer. The dragon typing works for this particular wyvern, since there are plenty of Monster Hunter wyverns it doesn't, and then I went with the cold trait, inspired by the likes of the Frost Drake and White Dragon. But maybe that's a little presumptuous on my part. With the intent to design the Legiana as a flying skirmisher, dexterity is its first priority with an extreme value, letting it flit and fly through the frosty air with ease. There's actually a little resemblance, ability score wise, to my previous creature, as its next highest ability scores are only moderate, with a tie between strength and wisdom. This leaves its constitution and charisma with only a low bonus, focusing more on avoidance than survivability, and then representing the fact that I think the Legiana is kind of a pretty monster. As a little fun fact, the Legiana borrows some hawk imagery in its design and weapon descriptions, and that is enough to convince me of the usage of a high perception. I'm not sure that dark vision is right, but I've seen it fight at night a few times and it's never seemed to have any trouble with it. Its skills are then fairly simple. An extreme acrobatics follows its extreme dexterity, and makes it a superior flyer, while its athletics is moderate, to match its moderate strength, as it does make a tiny bit of use in it within its kit. I've got a little something special to talk about when it comes to the Legiana's defenses, but let's start with the basics before we get to that. Going off of its maneuverability and agility, it has a high armor class, though I was a little cautious about this one. As I said, the Legiana has them designed as a skirmisher, and it can fly. That can already make it hard enough to hit. However, it is limited to melee strikes, or range area effects, and also has hit points on the lower side for its level. We actually raise these hit points during the Monster Mash, because while it is immune to cold damage, it has weakness to fire and electric damage, obviously based off of how it operates in Monster Hunter. The Legiana also has some vulnerability to poison. While it isn't specifically weak to it, being poisoned stops it from using its cold-based abilities for a round due to blocked glands, which is again inspired by in-game effects. We're sticking with the extreme dexterity and reflecting it with an extreme reflex save, but that means its remaining saves are both low, so PCs should try to prey on its fortitude and will saves to bring it down. That brings us to its components, a feature that I originally designed to work with Cameron's Horizon Zero Dawn creatures, but that seemed a perfect fit for some MH monsters. These parts are designed to break in 1 or 2 hits but have an extreme armor class, which some people have suggested makes them not worth attacking. Let me know what you think of the design here. I think that it could go either way. That does bring us to the Legiana's offenses, and like I said, it only has melee strikes. Now, admittedly, these strikes have reach and finesse, but this does mean that players can do stuff like ready strikes for when the Legiana swings, or put together other appropriate plans. I think stuff like that is kind of a fun challenge, so hopefully your players do so as well. And just going in line here, the Legiana has a jaw strike with a moderate attack bonus, reach and finesse as its only traits, and then high damage to give this just a bit more juice. Its remaining 2 strikes use a high attack bonus, and while its tail has the longest reach in its design, it deals only moderate damage. This leaves its talons, which have both the agile trait and the grab ability to help it lock down prey, but are balanced with only low damage. Honestly, given how I played this cold callous critter in the Monster Mash, it might not even get much chance to make use of that agile trait, which I'm sure you'll understand after we take a look at some of its abilities. We'll start off nice and easy with Nimble Flyer, a free action that triggers at the start of the Legiana's turn. This is just to help it stay aloft and still pull off other attacks or abilities, which is why it can only be used to hover. It can't actually move when it uses this effect. However, maybe my concern of keeping it aloft is unfounded. It has options such as Freezing Flight, an ability inspired by the Nightmare's Flaming Gallop, featuring unlimited use area damage and a high DC. Naturally, this is cold damage, and is based off of some of the swoops that the Legiana does, chilling the air and its foes all at once. With this effect only being 2 actions, the Legiana can potentially maneuver itself into position to then unleash a Frost Flip, an ability that, to me, feels the most like the Legiana. It's pulled this trick way too many times on me to count, where it flips in the air and then slams its tail down, though this is also based on its wing flap to create a line of ice. I held off on including both abilities as they felt a little redundant with each other. This affects align the length of Legiana's tail and includes a strike with it. But on top of that, it creates a burst of ice along the area and adjacent to it that deals unlimited use area damage at a high DC Fortitude save. I might have actually packed too much into this ability because then it also makes the area uneven ground, which is a way more brutal effect in PF2e than I originally gave it credit for. While both of those abilities use unlimited use area damage, the Legiana does have a limited use area effect in the form of its Icicle Realm, which actually comes from Monster Hunter stories. I thought this was too cool of an ability to pass up, with the Legiana rising into the air and then unleashing spears of ice below it. I admit the area is a little weird here, since it is an emanation that affects creatures below it, which is why it includes a little bit of flight beforehand. And as I said, this is a limited use area damage effect with another high DC reflex save, as prey below tries to dodge this perilous precipitation of projectiles. To mix options up a bit, we have Shrill Shriek. This is inspired by the iconic screech of the Legiana, a sound so distinctive that it ends up being the name for the Legiana's subspecies. Normally I don't do abilities based on roars, except when they're distinct, so this is another high DC Fortitude effect. There's no damage or anything on it, but failing this save leaves prey stunned and deafened, making them optimal targets for the Legiana. However, regardless of the result of the save, creatures are then immune to the Shrill Shriek for a minute, so it can't spam this. Finally, the Legiana has its Spiral Dive. This is a very basic effect, essentially designed as a powerful charge, but it requires the Legiana to descend to get the most use out of it. This means that the Legiana will have to expend at least 1 action getting into position for it, but if it does, the damage of its Jaws strike increases to extreme. Overall, this gives the Legiana a good mix of strike-based abilities and area effects that were a lot of fun to run in the Monster Mash. It's been a minute since I made some masterpieces out of these monsters, but here we have the Legia Snowfletcher. I leaned into the Legiana Ambition skill from the Alpha Plus armor set, which increases the max bow charge level, and made a magic bow out of it. I kept it around the Legiana's level, and after discussing it on the Discord, I added the Frost rune onto it. I initially thought that would be too much, with Frost already being a level 8 rune, but it seems like a greater misstep not to have it. On top of that, it has an ability that's slightly inspired by the bow's Dragon Piercer attack. I looked at the other magic bow in the remaster, the Split Head Bow, and with all the powers afforded to that, I felt comfortable making this Freezing Flight be a once per minute effect. This deals what feels like should be pretty standard cold damage with a line effect based on the range of the bow, and a DC appropriate for its level. Maybe I should have been more cautious here. Let me know what you think of the inclusion of the Frost rune and the general design of this bow down below. While this Monster Monday might leave you feeling cold, hopefully warmer weather is on the horizon. This frigid fury flies with finesse and ferocity, its flight freeing frosty flurries to freeze foes until they are forced to flee in fright. The Legiana is equipped with an array of icy abilities for you to torment your players with, and could be a fun foe to run as attacking an airship, calling to mind its introduction in Monster Hunter World. You could also run Legianas alongside Frost Drakes, or have a gang of them following an adult white dragon. They're all of a similar level and could make for an interesting and thematic encounter. Please let me know what you think of this monster and what other monsters you'd like to see in a comment. And if you do like what you see, please leave me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. If you want to see the other monsters I made, or the D&D version of this monster, check out the Monster Monday blog, which is linked in the description below, along with the Discord and Twitter. Thanks for watching, and have a monstrous Monday.